Okay, I don't know if this is working. I just made a bunch of changes to the scripts. It looks like we're live on YouTube. I'm gonna check on a few other things. Let's see if we're live on Twitch. Tuco is walking across my desk. Doesn't look like we're live on Twitch yet. Oh, we are live on Twitch. Okay. I'm just hitting this bug in the UI where we're live, but I am not online. Cool. Didn't see it post to the Gitter chat room, but let's see if the social media posts worked. I was just editing the script somewhat to try to give it Mastodon social media support. Oh, and maybe I broke something on the Gitter side. Or maybe it just got logged out again. Anyway, hi. We can be done with the title card. I still need to check to see whether the stream is actually working properly. A little more debugging than usual because I just made some changes to the scripts, and I did some testing on an alternate setup, but you know, I don't have a way of testing 100% of this without, you know, just like actually trying it live sometimes. So yeah, on Twitter I have this bot that posts on a separate account. I think I started it when people were having a lot of trouble with YouTube's native notification system. I think that system might have gotten a little bit better, or at least you've been able to like maybe make some more explicit settings, but I still think it's kind of helpful to have like a secondary notification mechanism. And so social media, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been keeping up with all the changes that Twitter says they have planned for the APIs, specifically affecting bots. And so I know a lot of bots, especially bots that actually interact with users, are going to be practically just impossible to run, or will require basically like one-off approval from Twitter under the new system. I don't know much about what's going on there. I think a lot of people are just like getting really frustrated with Twitter at this point and are seeing this combination of much more annoyance and much less value from the platform. And so, like, I don't know. I mean, I think Twitter is still like a pretty indispensable way for a lot of us to reach people who might be interested in what we're doing. But I think it's also been interesting to look for alternatives. And so one thing that I've been kind of interested in for a while, but just especially like the last couple of days, I've been just like actually trying to strategize a bit more around like decentralized internet stuff. And so I've been on Mastodon for, well, on and off Mastodon. I'm on like my second Mastodon instance at this point. And I really like the platform. It's certainly not without its flaws, but it's been just a really, I don't know, like reminds me of more like the earlier days of the internet. Like, you know, it's more like IRC and mailing lists in like the late 90s, not like Twitter, where it's basically just this like echo storm of rage and commercial stuff. And it's like kind of hard to actually have conversations with people on Twitter because there's this like kind of assumption that people are just like mostly acting like if they're being abrasive for any reason, then like you have no reason to interact with them because like you can just assume that they're not acting in bad faith. And if you waste your time trying to talk to anyone on Twitter, like it pretty much ends badly and waste your time. And I mean, that's not like universally true. Like sometimes you can have good interactions, but like it's been much harder and harder to have good interactions consistently with people outside of like a close-knit group of people you know on Twitter lately. It's been more of just like a tool for being angry online, which is frustrating. And so it's been nice that like in some ways Mastodon could be, you know, something that has a format that's similar to Twitter, but like I think the crucial difference that I think people have a lot of feelings about both positive and negative is that there is no central thing. Like there is no like getting your username on Mastodon, because it's like email. It's like, well, if you get your username before the @ then that's not unique. The entire email address is the unique identifier. And so it's this thing where I think in the earlier days of the internet, people were more used to decentralized services because that's just how things technically worked, because nothing tended to be just like as, like, I don't know, I guess I wonder why, you know, I think some of it is just like technological advances that made it easier to create just like very large systems, but you know, like there were plenty of centralized systems. Like, you know, it used to be much more common for websites to just run on like a single computer without even much of a load balancer. But yeah. Anyway, there are a lot of trajectories there that I could ramble on about decentralized internet technology. But I think the thing that I've been most optimistic about recently, you know, because like Mastodon's been like kind of interesting for a while. I think there are these like multiple waves of interest where additional people show up on the network because like something specifically provoked a specific small migration from Twitter. But yeah, it's been just like an interesting platform that I hope continues to be like a viable place to hang out. But then more recently, just like PeerTube has kind of sparked my interest. And like it's been kind of hard to tell like how viable that really is, because the current instances are kind of small, and it seems like it must be like really expensive to run a big instance. And I still don't really have a good sense of just like how PeerTube is to administer or what it will be like in the future, but I'm excited about it and I'm kind of interested in it. And so for anyone who isn't familiar, PeerTube, as the name might imply, there's some peer-to-peer technology involved. It's not primarily peer-to-peer, because as you might imagine, if you think through the technical implications of a primarily peer-to-peer video service, that would make availability really hard, because, you know, if you want to watch some obscure random video, because the internet is full of obscure random videos, it's not like everyone's watching like the same 100 TV channels like it used to be. You need something that's really designed to support this long tail. So you kind of have this environment where if you want to support that long tail of video content, then you don't necessarily have a lot of peers that are going to be accessing the same content at the same time. You know, it could be more of like an IPFS kind of scheme where the peers on your network probably have a bunch of local storage also. But then that's not something that you can just like summon into a browser tab and then use for a little while and then discard. Maybe with like web service workers or something that'll be possible in the future, but like that doesn't seem... Like it seems like, you know, you're not going to have like a viable YouTube alternative if you can't just like send someone a link to a video and expect that video to stream pretty quickly without that person having already like connected to bunches and bunches of peers and like spread the obscure content across the network first. So yeah, it's interesting thinking about like the different possible designs in that space. Like IPFS is the like distributed kind of content addressable file store that I've heard about and like researched a tiny bit, and I've seen systems kind of like that seem really interesting, but that like startup problem is really hard, just like finding enough peers that have the specific content you're interested in. But yeah, maybe there are interesting ways around that. PeerTube though kind of avoids that problem by bootstrapping the peer-to-peer system with a traditional web server. So you start out just like streaming all the data like one-to-many, using up gobs and gobs of internet bandwidth. But then like that's kind of your baseline. That's kind of necessary to handle that long tail case where you can just like paste somebody a URL and it works pretty easily. But I think the problem that they're trying to solve, based on my understanding of like trying to get up to speed by reading the documentation and stuff, the problem they're trying to solve with the peer-to-peer aspect is that if some content on the server gets really popular, like slash dotted in like the 90s slang, then like they want to make sure that the server doesn't immediately melt down from like thousands of people trying to download a 100 megabyte file instantly on one server's connection, you know. So one solution for that is pays some CDN to handle it. So I don't know whether that's like an alternative to the more peer-to-peer solution, or whether those two are orthogonal, like you might combine them. So that's something I want to research. Like, do people run PeerTube with a CDN, or is it more of an either-or? And yeah, anyway, like I could ramble on about what I've learned about this, but I'm certainly not an expert in it. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what's what, because I'm excited. And anyway, like I think I've been looking for a while for just ways of having like alternative platforms to YouTube, because like YouTube is a convenient place to store video and serve it on Google's bandwidth and have potentially a larger audience find it. Like that's what YouTube is useful for. But there are a lot of things YouTube is not good at. They don't really know how to like have community moderation standards that work, and I think a lot of people get really frustrated by just like how arbitrary they are. They have a huge problem with like choosing to kind of tune their algorithms in a way that promote like real-world harm in the form of like conspiracy theories and unnecessary controversies in the name of maximizing their engagement and profit numbers. So like that's not something I want to be like spending my time producing content in service of. So like that actually kind of depresses me, like makes me kind of depressed, like thinking about just editing content just to post it on YouTube. So it's nice to have alternatives. Practically speaking, that's kind of hard just because of the actual like bandwidth limitations. I do keep my stuff on archive.org and Vimeo. Archive.org is great. I really hope archive.org can stay around and like keep as much data as possible for as long as possible. So like if you can donate to archive.org, they're definitely a worthy cause. They have a lot of cool stuff that they do. I mean, you might have heard of the Wayback Machine, you know, where you can just like put in a URL and see what it was a long time ago. But they actually do a bunch of other stuff too. They're basically like a library, so they have like a library collection, and in fact it's a public collection that anyone can upload to. So yeah, check it out if you haven't seen what they do. They're a pretty cool organization. And so that's free, and like it works for my content because I can Creative Commons license all my videos. But not everyone can do that, either because they're trying to monetize their videos with ads, which is certainly not mutually exclusive. And to be clear, like for a while I had ads on YouTube. It didn't work very well, and I had like only a tiny bit of ads enabled, but like that's not mutually exclusive with Creative Commons. But if you have Creative Commons and you're relying on the ads to make money, then you're kind of giving yourself this opportunity for people to just like copy your videos and host them on a different site, and like that has to be okay because it's Creative Commons. So like it's kind of hard to have something that's like really ad supported, but for channels like mine where it's like patron supported and I want the content to be freely available, then like Creative Commons and archive.org are like really great for that. So there's that. I've also been trying to keep stuff on Vimeo, but just like the way Vimeo structures their plans and like their upload limits and everything, it's been hard to do that. There's like a pretty expensive professional plan where they cap the total amount of data you can store at something like 5 terabytes, which I think would be fine for a little while, but I would definitely hit that limit at some point in the not unforeseeable future. And the plan I'm on right now is less expensive, and instead of limiting your total storage, they limit your upload quota per week, which is, it's weird that that's your choice that you have to make. And so that's been maybe more sustainable, but it means I've had to be like really choosy about what to upload when, so there's still a lot of gaps in the video catalog I have on Vimeo. So anyway, it'd be cool to actually run PeerTube, and one thing I am really lucky with here is that I have really fast internet, and they will give me a really cheap gigabit connection with static IP that I can like host stuff on. So I might experiment with hosting video and see how far that gigabit actually goes with hosting my own content, and if it seems like it's enough for a while, then maybe I could even turn it into a little bit of an electronics video community thing if other people are into the like Creative Commons, open source, decentralized media kind of stuff. Sorry I've been behind on chat. I've just been like rambling and not paying attention to anyone else. Let me try to catch up. Yeah, I've been doing a whole bunch of just like IT stuff, setting up energy monitoring and remote power control, and reinstalling Windows. I did a bunch of reinstalling Windows. But yeah, mostly the last couple weeks I haven't been streaming because I've been editing video. And so you've been seeing some of those come out. There's also just been a bunch of just like organizing footage behind the scenes and like trying to get those into piles that I can actually get out. I've got like basically 2 more videos in this current collection of footage that are close to done. I just need to do some, maybe they're not that close. There's still a bunch more editing, but I've got like the footage basically separated into 2 more videos, and then I can like, I don't know, I have these milestones for myself where I have these video bundles that I separate video by topic and then by date, and then I kind of keep those in blocks that tend to be like maybe a terabyte. And it's this nice milestone when I've like edited all of that raw material into final videos and I get to like throw away the raw material. I used to be more of a pack rat about it, and I actually, I still have a toolbox full of hard disks in the closet, which is just like cold storage, just like dumping files there and then unplugging the drives. But yeah, it would be really expensive to save all of my footage, and I don't think I even really need to, and it was just like enough of a cognitive load having a bunch of stuff around that I didn't really think I was going to use, so I have like a buffer of stuff that I save, but then I delete, which actually feels nice. And I can still recycle stuff from earlier projects because I keep like high bitrate, like intermediate files for stuff that I've actually edited. So I have like high bitrate versions of all the finished videos that I can like pull portions of that, which seems fine if I want like flashbacks. Tuco really likes that rack. Yeah, sorry, it's been a little while since I streamed last. It's been a constant struggle to figure out like when to record and when to edit, and you know, I think I can also just like let the kind of antisocial urges pile on top of themselves, and well, if I haven't been streaming for a while and I'm enjoying the like hermity editing mode, I can just like continue to enjoy the hermity editing mode. So what? That's every so often somebody says something in chat which is like I can imagine this past self in which it would have made sense, like oh, there's like a meme that I can, there's like a meme hole I can plug that sentence into that me as like a young Linux nerd on IRC would have really enjoyed, but like nowadays with my current worldview it makes a lot less sense. And I'm not going to pick on the person that said this, and it isn't like archive, but they're just saying that they're glad they use Linux because they get to mess up and fix their own system. And it's just like weird because I mean we could like dissect that. I don't need to like microanalyze anything, especially on a stream that like could theoretically be about writing code. But like I've actually spent a lot of my life working on operating systems. And I had a day job for like 6 years where I was pretty much concurrently working on like 4 different operating systems. And like at this point, this operating system superiority comments like don't even make any sense to me because I've seen like the good and the bad and the ugly from all the operating systems, I think. So it's just weird. It's like I think if you bother to become an expert in any of the operating systems, really, then like you can like tinker under the hood and like really like diagnose and fix like every single thing that's going on. but then like you can approach every single operating system out there as kind of like a black box appliance that you can kind of throw away and get a new one if it's misbehaving. And neither of those approaches are more correct. They're just different ways of interacting with something. And in fact, like the fact that I reinstalled Windows doesn't even, I think, imply that I was interacting with the system in a black box way, because that particular computer, I'd actually spent a lot of time like working on trying to understand particular problems in it. And the reason I installed Windows wasn't even because it was having any particular problem. It was just because I wanted a clean machine. So it's like weird when people, like I understand the reasons why you would like feel that way and say something like that, because like I used to feel that way. But then it's like weird when I think people who should know better just like let that slide in their communities. So I don't think there's a reason to be like smug about any particular piece of software you use or any particular like level of detail with which you choose to interact with software. So I'm just gonna say that's the like norm I plan to enforce here. Yeah, it's weird. Like the content intermediaries, the big ones like YouTube and Twitter and whatever, certainly do seem to have different rules for the big channels and the little channels. And it's not even like a binary thing like that. Like I think there are different rules for people who have like 1 million subscribers versus people who have like 100,000 subscribers versus people who have like 2,000 for subscribers versus people who have like 10 subscribers. Like I think you do find a different experience even in those kind of granular buckets. And I mean, I don't even know if that's like intentional or even something that they've, you know, I don't know whether it's like, first of all, kind of human or algorithmically enforced, and I don't know whether it's intentional or accidental. But I mean, I think that there are some clusters in terms of, I mean, some of that's in terms of like their policies, like access to, you know, kind of like, you know, they have a bunch of services. I forget what they're called, but like for like really fancy creators, they have like special conferences and special like concierge services and stuff like that. And those open up at the really high like numbers of subscribers. And then they actually have some like algorithmic blocks so that some features are not available to you if you have under 1,000 subscribers. But then like in between, like I don't know what's going on. Like if there's like it seems like there are points at which you reach like algorithmic tipping points where your channel starts getting recommended more or not recommended much. And yeah, it's strange. I mean, I'm sure people have like ranted on about forums, or about this on forums that I don't care to participate in. George says they're gonna need me to pick up my regular schedule. You mean the like all day Tuesday, Thursday thing? We could try that. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to try that again. Like, I think lately it's been, I guess I've just been finding it kind of weird to do streaming that feels kind of pointless in a way, but I don't really mean that the way it sounds. Like, I mean, I know that like every time I stream, there's like some potential for like interaction and inspiration and like some interesting conversation to happen, and like I don't want to devalue that. But that said, like it's like kind of depressing when things feel aimless. So you know, I feel like it's been really satisfying when I've had a particular project that I can prepare and then do a stream which has a combination of that real-time value and that kind of recording footage for later, and it does actually a good job at both of those, something that actually is satisfying in the moment and actually does give me good footage for later. Those are really great. But yeah, and maybe the answer is just like, well, I just need to do a better job at balancing those things and suck less. Yeah, and I've just been, you know, obviously prioritizing the video editing more lately, but yeah, I should stream more, and the regular schedule would do probably good things at like giving me a kick at the pants to make me actually do that. Yeah, you know, honestly, sometimes it's really hard just to pick a topic because I feel like it's satisfying when I can stream about one thing that is like it's like the everything, like the little unicorn topic or whatever, the stream that is interesting right now and gives me good footage, and the footage is easy to categorize and it's all in one place, and I'm not like cutting back and forth between unrelated things and giving myself a giant mess to sort out later, and you know, it's like at the right time of day, and it's you know, it's got like all the right preparation, and it's not like taking time away from something else that would be like a better, for example, editing project or software project or something else. So, yeah. And that said, there are some ongoing projects that pretty much always need more attention. I just have not been enthusiastic to put more work into them given the existing footage backlog. And so there's stuff like, you know, obviously working on TucoFlyer and improving, you know, some of the stuff we might even work on some today. Like, it needs, obviously, software work, a little bit of firmware work. The hardware for the winches and the flyer are pretty good. Like, we might enhance the flyer a bit with some decorative skin. Honestly, though, there's like one piece of hardware that really sucks, and it's not the flyer, it's not the winches, it's actually the ceiling mount. The ceiling mount for the leash, the wire that carries power, network, and video. And so when I move the flyer around and it makes these awful, like, rattly, like, screechy noises, that's actually the leash mount, and it's really bad. And we could do some simple fixes maybe that would make it much better. So I've actually got the 3D models for that loaded up into Fusion 360 so that we could maybe investigate that. Let's see, so yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things within TucoFlyer. There's many other projects here that could use additional work. As I think Tino points out every time they're in the chat, there's the Tandberg C90, which is that giant video conferencing box that was donated a little while ago. And we've done a cursory investigation on that, but there's a lot more work that we could do and a lot of directions we could go in there. And so that project has kind of been in this state where I could pretty much choose a bunch of different directions to go in and stream that. I've been reluctant to pick a particular direction given that I've already got a big backlog of footage on that project that I haven't edited into like an introductory video yet. And I think that's probably the first step, is to edit an introductory video. But, you know, I could also just like learn not to fear the backlog so much. Honestly, I think I got on a bit of a like footage backlog reduction kick because I was running out of hard disk space, and then I upgraded my editing machine and it has more hard disks now. So even if I fill up my NAS, my editing machine has an SSD RAID that I'm actually editing on, but then it also has a spinning disk RAID that I can just keep spare footage on. So yeah, I'm not short on disk space for the near future, which is nice. So maybe I can just like stream and stockpile and not worry about it that much. So yeah, no, I'm interested in feedback about schedule, and I certainly could try just picking something that seems somewhat viable to stream, you know, like a couple days a week, and not worry so much about the ratio of filming versus editing. And just generally just keep trying to get faster at the editing and putting content out. So, yeah, well, I think that's that. I've got a couple of things. This isn't going to be like an unboxing stream, but I've got a couple of objects I wanted to look at. So let's switch to the desk camera. Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Yeah, that's a great question. James asks, is there a story that you want to complete for getting a Tandberg video finished? Yeah, no, that's a great question and kind of an open question. Right now, the story that I can tell with the footage that I've already got is basically just kind of like a lay of the land. Like, here's here's what's inside this, which is not that compelling from like a narrative point of view, but it makes an okay like electronics teardown video. If I could do better, that would certainly be great. There might be something that I could, you know, just like something where I can just like make a contextualizing narrative around that and then record some voiceover to add that in, you know, kind of edit that as two separate storylines woven together. And I could do that to kind of add a narrative with the footage I've already got, and I think that would be viable. But if I could, yeah, if there's some kind of milestone I could get to that would tie in with a good video narrative, that would be great. And then that would also lend itself to additional streams. So that's a great question. Oh yeah, Lars says they often find themselves longing for a Scanlime stream, but always assumes there's a lot to do or a lot of backlog to go through. Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot to do, but I often have trouble figuring out like what to do next, and then just end up with like choice paralysis. And so, and especially lately, I've been just like trying to edit video, but yeah, there's, as I was saying, certainly a lot of things we could be doing just to make Tuco Flyer better or to make progress on other projects. I've also just been, I think, getting kind of stuck in this like higher level question of, well, how would one, in theory, prioritize what I'm doing? And like, what do I even have as far as a strategy for prioritizing stuff? And I think to me that kind of goes back to the question of, well, what am I trying to do here? I've got some thoughts about that, just like on the like artist statement / like patron introduction thing that I recorded a couple of years ago at this point. But like one of the reasons I haven't re-recorded that video is I feel like my feelings about that have kind of evolved, but I haven't really been able to like get a clear picture of what I feel like I can really do in terms of something positive that exists in spite of all the negative that is the world around technology right now. So yeah, it's been kind of this thing that I keep getting stuck in, like how to really direct myself. And so one way to avoid getting stuck is just to like, you know, finish the things I've already started, which feels useful. But yeah, even within that broad topic of finishing the things I've started, there's stuff like, you know, making additional progress on those projects via streaming and writing software and building stuff and whatever. Oh, James, I didn't mean to. I hope you don't feel like I'm too harsh on your questions. Yeah, sorry if I am. But yeah, that was good. Yeah, choice paralysis. All right, let's go to the desk camera. Let's at least start this. I don't know if this new, some of you might notice the white balance on the camera is completely different than it usually is. I've been, in my editing, just like having to make just like, I don't know, the white balance has been annoying, I guess. And I don't really like the options this camera gives me. It's like one of many things that it'll be nice to have if I switch cameras. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. There's some things I wanted to show that were maybe a little quicker than this, but we're here in the desk. What was I just saying about choice paralysis? Let's just pick something and stick to it. All right, so we're on the desk. I can move my notes elsewhere because they don't really need to be in frame. Oh yeah, I thought this was a strange object. What does one do with cursed objects, I have to ask? Is there a process for dealing with cursed objects? Right? I think this was actually kind of interesting on the microscope too. Yeah, so you can see the kind of the leftover parts from something. What is that? I can't tell if that's just like kind of a prismatically shaped glob of glue, or whether it's actually like a piece of metal that's being glued to the inside, but there's something attached to the inside of this. So yeah, I was just like walking, running errands the other day, and I found this on the sidewalk in Berkeley somewhere, and yeah, it's pretty bad. I thought like, oh, is this a money clip? But I posted this on Mastodon asking if anybody knew what it was, and yeah, apparently there's some kind of promotional keychain that has pieces like that. Anyway, could be a useful art object maybe if we need to make a voodoo doll or something. I don't know. Oh, is it magnetic? That's a good question. It is not magnetic. We are also out of focus. There we go. Yeah, not magnetic. So yeah, I have to keep that somewhere safe / unsafe. All right, this should be much nicer. So this actually comes as part of Boldport Club, but I don't know if this is going to be like a video, really, because it's not actually a kit. But it might be useful to have some footage of it nonetheless. So let's record this. Comes right off. Whoa. I felt like there was something else, but I think it's just a piece of cardboard kind of stiffening this whole thing. It's cool. This is actually... This white balance is better, but it's not perfect. I'm still gonna have to mess with this in post. James suggests semi-ritualistically melting it down. I could grind it into dust, maybe. That seems like the right thing to do, maybe. Station 240 says, if that one's cursed, imagine what a MySpace would be like. Yeah, right. That one would probably just be so loud and multicolored and animated that you wouldn't be able to look directly at it. Oh gosh, where's that sandbag I was using to keep the camera from wobbling? I think I just need legit to buy more sandbags. I thought I had enough sandbags, but nope. There are like, I know I've been saying like a lot today. It probably makes me seem much more Californian than usual. I'm not even from here. So there are 2 sandbags on each of those light stands back there. There are 3 on this camera stand. There's one small one over here just weighing down some wires. There's one heavy one on this tripod. Well, if I just think I can borrow this one. Oh yeah, James says melting aluminum is fairly fun and easy as melting metals go. Yeah, that's true. I've actually been meaning to do more projects that might involve melting aluminum. Yeah, I got, this came up, I think, in the context of making like frames for art projects that might be like made of some other material like plastic or glass or something, but then you might need a metal frame to support it. And I was imagining different ways to do this. I thought about TIG welding. I have done some TIG welding. I took a TIG welding class, and I've done a little bit of practice on my own, but I don't really have a good place to weld right now. I don't think I could really set up a welder safely in this shop. There's just not really enough space that's devoid of flammable objects here, and not really enough electricity, and not really enough ventilation. But yeah, so like welding is fun and I like it, but I don't really have a good space where I can do TIG. So that's one reason to maybe try aluminum brazing. So I got some aluminum brazing rods and a MAP gas torch. And that might be interesting to try sometime, because you can just like do that like without a lot of like space or setup. But yeah, the project I ended up like building an aluminum frame for, I actually just ended up bolting together pieces for that particular project. So I still have a couple of those aluminum brazing rods unused. Alright, sandbags to the rescue. Oh, Orochikaku says, did I go to university? If so, what did I major in? Yeah, I did go to university. I don't know, I had kind of a complicated relationship with it though. Like, I started, well, yeah, I don't know where, like, which thread to pull on in this story. Yeah, so like, I did go to university. I went to school in Colorado at a state school and studied, I studied electrical engineering and computer science kind of combined as like a computer engineering major for a couple of years. And then I switched majors to just computer science, and somehow I graduated with a computer science degree. But that doesn't really tell this whole story, because like I didn't really have a good relationship with school, whether it was like K through 12 or college. And for the most part, what I was doing was working on my own projects and trying to ignore my parents, trying to ignore the teachers, and just... So like, there were some classes that I got a lot out of. Like, there was a math class I had in high school that was really influential. There was a literature class in middle school that made a big impact on me. A positive impact. There were a bunch of classes that were negative, but just thinking about the positive for now. And there were a couple classes in college that I really got a lot out of. There was this artificial intelligence class that I took, which, depressingly, the field of AI has changed so much that like the stuff that I learned in that class is pretty much useless now, and the stuff that we were doing then, like it's weird, because like, you know, some of you might know this, but like the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's gone through a lot of different phases. There was this kind of like really logic-oriented phase in the really early days where people thought that the way we would do this is just like teaching computers how to solve like logic equations. And that didn't really lead anywhere, because it turns out that the world is really hard to like represent in a consistent way. So, and then there were kind of variations on that to try to deal with inconsistencies. But then there was this completely different field, kind of more biologically inspired, making neural networks. And that was interesting, but I think for a while, neural networks were kind of limited in the scope of problems people could really solve with them, because, you know, we didn't really have strategies for scaling up neural networks to the degrees we do now, either the algorithmic strategies like convolutional neural networks, or just modern GPU hardware. So for a while, neural networks kind of went out of fashion as this thing that like could solve small problems, but if you really wanted to get some work done, you'd use like support vector machines, or like, you know, you'd like start really tweaking your kernel functions. Yeah, and then that kind of, you know, I don't know if people still use that these days, but it's certainly gone out of style and isn't as powerful as some of the techniques people are using with like neural networks and backpropagation now. But that was still an interesting class, like one of the few that I actually got a lot out of. there were actually two of those classes, two artificial intelligence classes. There was like an introductory class and then like an advanced class. And the advanced class is the one that I got, like they were both good, but the advanced class was kind of like more researchy, which was nice. But those were the exceptions. Like I think most of my education was really self-teaching as much as I could. I just had a lot of really bad experiences with teachers and found myself often in classes where it didn't really seem like there was anything interesting for me to learn, and that the stuff that I was interested in wasn't being taken seriously, or nobody even knew about it, or I just like didn't want to talk to them and I just wanted to work on my own. Like one example that I kind of think about sometimes that relates to this is I took this digital logic class in college. This was, I think it was like my second year there, so while I was still doing the kind of electrical engineer combined major thing before I switched. I also made the mistake of basically taking all the interesting classes first. So I took all the classes that I was like really passionate about in the first couple years there, and then I was just faced with having to like fulfill graduation requirements, and that just made me hate school even more than I already did. Like for example, I'd already taken a bunch of calculus, and then like senior year, I was in some introduction astronomy class where they were making me go through the steps of like drawing a graph on paper and like cutting it out and weighing it in order to estimate the integral. And like I understand why they would want someone to go through that, but like if the person, like if that's not like the right level for the person, like if it's either too boring or not intelligible, then it's not good education. And like in that case, I was just so fed up with going through the motions of these things that I didn't feel like I was learning from, that I just got frustrated with the entire experience. And yeah, so I had a really bad time. Yeah, like, so that one experience I thought was interesting to mention was I took this, not the astronomy thing, but I took this digital logic class. And I took this fairly early because it was one of the classes I was interested in, so I took it pretty much as soon as I could. And I was really bored by the homework. It was like doing logic reduction with pencil and paper by hand, which was like really interesting to learn how to do. Like I found it really interesting to know how to do that and to do it a couple of times. But spending like every evening doing a bunch of that when I could be learning something new or like, you know, doing something that was actually interesting, that just seemed pointless to me, and it seemed like counter-educational. It did not seem useful to me, so I just didn't do a lot of that. And like in that class, it got to the point where there was this final project where I was just getting really into this final project, and I made this thing that I was really proud of, and even like I think I showed it to the professor at one point, and he was just blown away by how cool it was. And but like I still got a terrible grade because like I didn't do a bunch of the homework and didn't go to some of the tests. So like that was pretty representative of my education experience as a whole. Yeah, I'm still bitter about a lot of that stuff. I had some pretty bad, like, just one-off experiences, too. Like, I had this second grade teacher who insisted there was no such thing as negative numbers, and you could not subtract 5 from 3 or whatever. And that made a big impression on me, because that was, I think, the first time, in memory at least, when, like, I knew I was right and the authority figure was wrong, and there was nothing I could do about it. So that was the lesson that I learned that day in second grade elementary school, or elementary school arithmetic class or whatever. Yeah, and I've got several of those. Like even some of the teachers that I thought I could actually trust or get along with or whatever, like that literature teacher that actually, for the most part, was really great and made a good positive impression on me. I had this problem once where I was just like in class reading or writing or something, having a fine time, and she like reports me to go to the front office because I'm wearing the wrong kind of shirt. Like, it doesn't have the right kind of collar. It's the right color, it's the right material, it just doesn't have quite the right kind of collar. And because of this, she like snitches on me and sends me to the principal's office to for a dress code violation, and that made a big impression on me. I hated stuff like that. I had multiple science teachers who said stuff in lecture that I knew was wrong, and then when I tried to talk to them about it, they tried to maintain this position of authority and look cool in front of the other students instead of actually either admitting there was an inconsistency or talking about it or telling me why I was wrong or whatever. Yeah, I had a history teacher who ridiculed me in front of the other students for not knowing the difference between two kinds of cars. What was it even? Like a Corvette and a Chevrolet or something. Because why would I know about cars as a middle school student without a driver's license? And these teachers thought it was important enough to look cool in front of the kids that they're being paid to educate that they yeah. So I lost respect for teachers pretty early on. Made some exceptions certainly when there was somebody really good, but just on average. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. The follow-up question was, would I recommend people who are interested in tinkering and CS-related stuff, like things that I do on my channel, go to university nowadays? That's a really good question. I don't know if I can give you a straight answer. It really depends on what you hope to get out of it and what your situation is. Because I know some people who, for me, I didn't want to go to university. My parents told me I had to go, and I didn't really know how to opt out at the time, so I just did what I thought I had to do. Kind of let myself be bossed around by them for the most part at that point in my life. So I'd never really thought it through as far as, a cost-benefit thing, or will it be right for me or whatever. In fact, it seemed like it probably wouldn't be right for me, but, I kind of just let them talk me into doing it, and I had some say in where I went, but that was kind of the extent of it at the time. I don't know, and I mean, I chose to go into a major that I thought I would be interested in, just because that's what I was doing on my own, and I thought that I could do that at school and try it, but then, yeah, the thing where the actual education environment wasn't really working for me kind of overrode the part where it was maybe a good match for my interests. And to be fair, I was also a pretty, kind of close-minded little tech nerd kid. I wanted to do the things I was interested in. I didn't have a lot of patience for the things I wasn't interested in. I could have certainly stood to spend more time, I did actually spend a lot of time, in fiction sometimes. Because I was about to say I could have just spent more time in humanities and fiction and whatever, but I did actually, to the extent that I could, but then some of those classes were just really hard to identify with because they weren't actually about the ideas or the big picture or anything. They were just memorizing dates. And then a lot of the classes about literature, I enjoyed doing the reading sometimes, but then I really dreaded the discussions that I'd have to have in the classroom because I didn't get along with other kids and didn't really like that environment for the most part. So, I just would rather be on my own and write essays about stuff than have to talk about it in front of a bunch of people who are going to beat me up later. So, but your question about whether to go to university, like in terms of if you should just do that now, I mean, yeah, I think it depends a lot on whether you are doing it for, you know, some kind of educational goal, whether you're doing it to get a job and get paid, whether, you know, you're doing it as a stepping stone towards something else that you expect to be like more your thing, like teaching, university, or like getting, you know, higher education or something. So yeah, it can be, it depends a lot on your path. And like, I also know a lot of people who, you know, got a certain amount of education and then, you know, decided to take more classes later, either like go back to college, go back and get a second degree. But like, yeah, a lot of it I think depends on the job you're going into. If you like, so I guess I've got two answers after thinking about this, stumbling around my words for a second. Okay, so one answer is there's like a kind of pragmatic answer that's basically make a decision that's based on what you think the job market is going to be like when you get out of school and how much you think it's going to cost to go to school. So figure out what your options are as far as schools that you can get into, schools that have programs you like, whatever. Figure out how much those are going to cost. Figure out what kinds of financing might be available to you. Figure out what particular jobs you might want, and like you have to extrapolate a little bit because things do move pretty quickly and things might be different when you get out of school. But I mean, if you look at the way things are now, at least, like you can get some idea just based on like what kinds of jobs you're seeing out there that you might be interested in. Like you could research maybe what those jobs are actually like, see if they might be a good fit for your interests now or the career you might want to have later. And then just figure out like, well, how much does it seem like that particular degree is worth in that job market? Like, will it get you in the door? Will it help you get a bigger salary at your first job? Will it help you get a foundation of knowledge that will let you do a better job? Like, will it? So that's one way to look at it. The other piece of advice, and you might not like this, is that honestly the like CS, the like computers and tinkering and electronics and whatever, that stuff is just increasingly going to become this layer that underlies everything that you're going to need to learn to some extent, no matter what. And so you can kind of front load that with a CS degree and like learn a bunch of technology and then like have to learn the rest of the stuff. But that's not necessarily the easiest way to go. Like, it's also maybe worth thinking about what kinds of other like goals you might have in life, or interests you have, or directions you might want to go in, and what kinds of education or prerequisites might help for those. And then maybe use that as a tiebreaker and think like, well, I mean, you could just like go into electrical engineering just like purely for electrical engineering's sake. But I mean, personally, that doesn't seem extremely interesting or fulfilling, and maybe that's just because that's where I'm at in my life. But I guess like from where I'm standing at this point, the advice that I would have given younger me is to cultivate some orthogonal interests to a greater degree so that you can maybe use those in addition to the technology stuff that you're probably going to have to pick up on your own no matter what, and you might be able to go to school for, but like, yeah, I don't know if that helps, but that's pretty much the best I've got right now. Oh no, Laura says they got ridiculed for bringing up infinity in algebra. That's terrible. Yeah, it's bad, just like the kinds of things that teachers can do just to kind of maintain like authority rather than actually, you know, I like it when educators can try to, you know, this might not always be possible, but it's really great when an educator can try to cultivate as much of like a peer relationship as possible. You know, for the person who's got more experience to try to leave their ego elsewhere and try to treat students as equals and not just somebody to kind of like broadcast to. And I'm sure that's harder to do just like year after year in a public school, for sure. But like to me, that's like the ideal to aspire to. And yeah, I didn't often see teachers getting anywhere close to that when I was a kid. Yeah, I had one science teacher who made all sorts of unit conversion or unit analysis mistakes and then just like didn't want to, and then just like she tried to like fix it, but then she just kept making it worse and didn't actually want to talk about what was wrong. Yeah. Did I just record 24 minutes of basically the same frame? That's cool. My tea is probably cold now. I'm gonna put some more hot water in here. To go is over here. Oh gosh, yeah. James adds, my sister, who is for many years a professional high school math teacher and a department head, pointed out that we don't actually expect high school math teachers to know math. Yeah. Yeah, right, 24 minutes of arm waving over a postcard. That's what I spend my terabytes on over here. Yep. 8264 well spent. Yeah, I've also got a video recorder over there that's been recording the screen on this computer that we haven't gotten around to doing much with. That's all the more reason not to keep my raw footage indefinitely, because I like to be able to record a lot and not really have to worry about it. And then just I can throw away a lot of stuff while I edit. Hey Took, why did that not track you? Oh gosh, are you gonna sit right on top of this? I still have not fixed that hysteresis problem. That might be something to work on today. At this rate, this is mostly just going to be a chatting into the camera sort of stream, but that's not bad. It's been good so far. Hey, Took. Hey, Chirpy. Yeah, this is good. But yeah, I'm having a good time here if you are. Like I feel like if every stream was just like chatting, then I would probably start to feel like I'm just like hanging out at the water cooler and not working. But doing it every so often is really nice. Oh yeah. Gosh, this cat is really good. I could just get lost in how good this cat is. I've got this graph up, which I was gonna get to soon. I've been trying to like keep the stream somewhat linear, but it's showing power consumption, and every time I see a spike there, I'm like trying to diagnose what's going on. I think some monitors over there turned off recently. Yeah, I really get along with cat people too. Like, there's something about being nice to cats that I find very satisfying, and it's a nice thing to bond with other humans over, being nice to cats. Tuco's had this really interesting variety of foods lately. I've got like 4 different kinds of kibble, and then I think I've got him on the right mix of, and then sometimes I give him this this wet canned chicken or duck or something. Oh yeah, yeah, send me cat photos. Yeah, I have to say, I was like plugging decentralized social networking earlier, and I have to say Mastodon is really good for cat photos, in case you need a platform that's full of cat photos and isn't as bad as Twitter. Can I get this any closer? Kinda. Can you hear it buzzing too? Oh, gotta remember the coordinate systems here. That's something else we could be doing. Oh, my controller keeps running out of batteries. That's inconvenient. Yeah. People who play Xbox probably know that that flashing means the battery's low. Someone told me that once. I should replace these. Battery charging and cat litter. Oh, what a beautiful fuzz boy. Whoa. Are you hunting? Maybe I should put the KVM switch into a more hunting resistant position. Yeah, James is asking how easy it is to move between instances. It's not as easy as it could be. It's not terrible. It's not great. You can kind of put up like a redirector that tells people you moved, but it isn't fully automated. Oh, Tuco is so shiny. Look at that specular highlight. That said, I'm on a second instance, but when I did that, I didn't actually use the migrator. I just like rage quit the first instance and deleted everything. So, but even given that, like, I eventually found the people I wanted to find for the most part. It's been a work in progress, but yeah, I mean, I feel like having this like really absolute idea that you're going to like always have this one group of people and never lose them, and you know, I'll have this monotonically increasing follower count and have a single identity across all servers. Like that's like a very kind of centralized social network way of thinking about it, and I think maybe Mastodon just works better with a slightly different approach. It's more about having, kind of embracing the potential fragmented nature of identity rather than kind of making everything be centralized, and as a consequence kind of having to have a centralized authority to manage that. Because like that's the fundamental trade-off, is like there is no centralized authority. You have communities that can interact with each other and, you know, federate, but there is no central moderation. So some moderation will be better than Twitter, some moderation will be worse. Overall, it's maybe more complicated, but has the potential to be a lot better, at least in places. So yeah, let's look at some of the computery stuff soon. I want to look at this package from SAR, though I keep putting this off. Oh, can I read handwriting? Whoa, sometimes the lens will just fall on its own because it's so heavy. Alright, so this comes from Sarah Drimmer, who usually brings us the BoldPort electronic kits every month. And this is from the BoldPort Club, and it is a circuit board, but it is not electronic. It's an art project. So Sarah writes, "Hello there, I've been doodling and drawing all my life, and I've been meaning for a long time to create a piece of art only with circuit board materials and manufacturing process. It's finally done. Enclosed is a circuit board art piece that Tuco is chewing on, and that I designed, and then now Tuco is over the writing, so I can't read. Hey Tuco." Tuco, you're so helpful. Pretty little thumbs. Tuco is unusual for a cat in that he doesn't really mind, at least for me, when I touch his hands most of the time. I don't know if he does that with everyone. He does like licking people too. Hey, Fuzzboy. Ah, that's a good question. Fred's asking what the red blinky indicator on Tuco Flare means. That means it's recording. Yes. The one blink means it's recording locally, just to the disk on Color Burst here. And it has a pattern with 2 blinks in it that indicates it's streaming. And so you can see it do either of those on its own, or you can see it do a pattern of 1 blink followed by 2 blinks, if it's recording and streaming. Where are you going? Oh, he's hunting flies. That's pretty good. Let me see if I can read the rest of this. Oh yeah, Fred asks if the dot follows the camera as it rotates. That it does. Yeah, the LEDs on the ring are all positioned relative to the direction the camera's facing. Yeah, maybe I can get that on here. Oh man, that looks better with the white balance not sucking. Oh, that's kind of a good shot actually. This isn't what I was talking about filming, but I wanted to get this shot while I was on my way there. There's a little bit of my reflection in the window too. I wasn't sure how temporary or not temporary that mounting would be. The 3D printed mounting bracket is attached to a little bit of 2x4, which is then clamped to a metal beam, and it's actually pretty sturdy, but it looks bad. Where did Tuco go? Completely lost track of him. I am so amazed by this camera's low light sensitivity. I mean, it's pretty noisy. I think most of what I'm looking at is auto ISO and a pretty good denoise filter, but still, call me easily impressed. Well, I don't know where Tuco is, but I can show you the camera moving around at least. We'll get to that. Let's look at the pod a bit. Wait for that to stop shaking before I'll have any idea if it's in focus. This actually might look better in the daytime because you'll have not quite such a stark contrast in the lighting. But yeah, that's the camera swinging around. There's kind of like a dim gray lighting on it on all sides, and then this kind of green iris. The green iris, actually the color indicates whether the computer vision is tracking. That's the way it's supposed to, actually. Right now, I consider this a bug that when I use the manual controls, it lights up green also. I don't actually want it to do that. I want it to show me just the computer vision status. Let's try messing with the exposure. I don't know if you'll be able to see the camera, but like the LEDs are really overexposed right now. They're still a little overexposed. The ring is kind of dim blue right now in real life, but it looks really bright blue on the camera. Oh, there's Tuco. That red flash there was me briefly manually putting it into halt mode just to try to get the camera to stop and go the other direction quickly because I was trying to follow Tuco. Yeah, this is pretty normal behavior though. Oh, I bought a little light recently that would be perfect for this. Yeah, little tripod light. That's like throwing a ton of light on the wall behind it. That's interesting. I could just turn on the lights in the room, but I kind of want to light up the robot. Let's just extend this tripod. Yeah, I think we might do more with the LEDs on the flyer in the future, but I'm pretty happy with the thing it's doing so far. Like, it indicates the status of the computer vision and the recording / streaming, which is a lot of what I want to know about it. Oh yeah, there's also some LED indicators on top, which might be kind of interesting. Maybe I can show those also. Oh, that's interesting. Now we're just getting like the specular highlight on the 3D printed plastic. Oh yeah. Oh gosh, the footage from today is going to be really weird to sort, but that's fine. We can just save it all forever. Hey there, Lampy McLampface. This thing can move pretty quickly too. Like right now, this is very rate limited in software. Like the motor can keep up with significantly faster movements if I wanted to. Can we get some footage of this lifting directly up, maybe? That was easy. One other thing that might be cool to do really soon on one of these streams, I want code that can, given all of the sensors on the flyer, estimate how high the flyer is above the ground. Which is not extremely trivial to do, because the flyer is wobbling all over the place most of the time. And it's got these laser sensors. The laser sensors each do a pretty good job of estimating the distance to some object that's reflecting the laser light. But one job is to kind of combine the sensor signals I'm getting from these 3 different laser rangefinders into a single height estimate. The other thing is combining the laser rangefinders with the orientation information from the IMU to figure out what angle the lasers are at relative to the ground and use that to adjust for that angle and come up with an actual height figure. Although this would be great if it was in focus. So yeah, that's something, I'm still not entirely sure how to do that. I've got some ideas around around like at least how to approach that maybe. The thing that I'd like to try first is maybe just to collect some data. So put the flyer at some known heights and then just change all the other variables we care to change. So have things occlude the signals like furniture, cats, humans. Most importantly, just set the flyer moving and have it wobble both slowly, quickly. And I think that would tell me some interesting things. I could use that to figure out you know, how much, like how to adjust the data for the actual motion. I could use that to figure out maybe an approach for using some sampled data of that form to come up with some calibration parameters that are effectively the angles of all the laser sensors. It doesn't have to directly be that. It could just be some opaque calibration matrix or something that ends up helping us go from distance readings to height, but something of that form that takes into account the positions of the laser sensors relative to the IMU. And that might involve some quaternion math, which would be fun to do. I don't know that much about quaternion math, so that could be some learning on its own, and certainly some learning how to do that in Rust. Okay, I think if I get this a little lower, I can show the top LEDs. And Tuco is just beautiful, as always. Oh gosh. The wire for my camera is slightly tangled. Man, really no regrets about changing my Manfrotto Magic Arm out for this different model that has the swivelly knob. Because I have one with the locking lever, and the lever it's fast. It's really fast, but it will just mess up your hand if you let it. And so this has been nice. It's much harder to hurt myself with this, even though it takes a little longer to get it locked. Yeah, I've done a tiny bit with quaternions ages ago as part of a 3D game engine project, but I'm sure I'm going to have to take a major refresher, figure out what parts of it I need to relearn. Alright, so this is still a bit overexposed. Some light way back here that might do the trick. That's not bad. Yeah, so the trick with these LEDs, they all line up with the individual cords, and they're actually mirroring right now the light patterns that you see on the winches themselves. So that red flash, that actually means that that winch is outside of its force limits. So what that means is that, at least momentarily, what's going on is that the that particular cord is kind of too slack, and it's not really holding the weight of the flyer. And so it's going to try to rebalance that by winching up a little bit of cord. So for example, if I pull this up, if I pull it just like way too much, then it'll start flashing. But like right now, when it's in the solid red but not flashing red, you can see it's actually moving up because it's trying to react and compensate for the motion that I've introduced. And so you can kind of use that as a debugging indicator, at least. Might do other things with it in the future, but right now it's been nice at least to show the winch status in one place. Looks kind of nice out of focus too. It's easier to see the wave motion with it out of focus, actually. It is nice how it lines up with the flyer's motion in 3D space also. I tried to keep the real units real, so like the LED models are all in meters, the motion is in meters per second. It tries to get the LEDs lined up with the actual real world motion, both on the winch side and the flyer side. Tuco is just sitting on the table right next to the robot right now. Good cat. Yeah. Alright, where were we? I was gonna read this note from SAR. Tuco continues to be amazing. Moki is asking if I can use the distance traveled by the winches to calculate the height. That doesn't really help me that much over the long term because the chords are pretty stretchy, and I don't really want to ever rely on long-term stability of the encoder positions in the system. So I use those distances, for example, to try to govern the speed of the winches, and I would use them in the context of like a single motion. Like I want the flyer to move like a meter that way. So then you decompose that into, well, I want each winch to go this distance, and then you make the motion. But you wouldn't want to like carry over those specific positions long term, because that doesn't really stand up as a long-term absolute position reference. The capstans will slip a tiny bit probably, the chord will stretch. I haven't measured how bad it is, but like the system is not designed for that to be like a really tightly controlled characteristic, so the whole design is to not really rely on that. And instead, the absolute positioning that I am getting in the system, to the, you know, such as it is, like I could layer on maybe more comprehensive absolute positioning systems. So like I would really like to experiment with adding you know, Vive style lighthouse tracking to the flyer, for example, using like, you know, VR technology, you know, Valve's lighthouse, to locate the flyer in the room. That's not extremely straightforward to do, partly because like I think it's just like it would take some, you know, technical work to just implement the lighthouse system in that case, but then partly because like lighthouse as it's designed and shipped right now, as far as I'm aware, wouldn't actually track in this large space. So, you know, like I've used Vive here. I'd love to do some projects with it, but so far I've mostly just been playing games on it. But I'd love to do some projects with either modifying the tracking or just like using it as like a visualization medium for something else. And hey Tuco. But yeah, I think it would require some non-trivial work in order to make that work as an absolute positioning scheme, so I'm not relying on that right away. That's like future work. The thing I am doing right away is I'm going to have a very coarse absolute positioning scheme, not something where I'm going to know like down to the millimeter for sure. I might not even know down to the meter, but I'll be able to know, hey, you're really close to running into this wall, or you're like really far away from that wall, like that kind of granularity. And that's going to be based on the load cells, so looking at the relative weights carried by all the winches. So that I do plan on using for like really coarse-grained absolute positioning, but I don't expect that it'll be really good. I expect it'll just be used for avoiding walls, basically. But the height, I actually want the height sensing to be pretty good if I can get it. There are a lot of other unknowns in the system that I need to calibrate for. And so one thing that I'll want to be able to get this system to do pretty soon is to just be able to move reliably within a single plane parallel to the floor. If I can get it to do that, then that's a primitive I can build other things on top of. And so, like, I can use that to work on other parts of the algorithm, like the relationship between 3D coordinates and kind of individual winch commands. I don't know, that just seems like a really useful step. And I have the ability to calculate that with a good degree of precision. I don't know if it'll be accurate or how repeatable it'll be. Certainly there's a bunch of stuff that could be in the way of the sensors, and I don't know how good the angle calibration idea I have in mind will work. So there's a lot of potential unknowns, but I think it'll be pretty good. I think it'll be able to at least keep the robot at a particular height, maybe within like several centimeters. I'd be thrilled if it could reliably position the robot within a few centimeters. That's not even what I need. If it's like within like 10 or 20 centimeters, that's probably enough. I'll be happy if it's like 5 centimeters probably. But yeah, that depends a lot, not on just the raw resolution of the lasers, which is really good, but on how well I can use the lasers to measure height given the moving platform. So that'll be an interesting experiment for the near future. Man, just look at all this distraction I've got. Let me see if I can actually finish reading this note. Is anybody just disturbed by how these streams are just a window into how ADD I am most of the time? Or is this just normal for a lot of us? This is why editing is great, because you can reorganize the footage and put things in an order that makes sense and cut out the stuff that's irrelevant. Cool, I'm glad I'm in good company here. Where is the cat, speaking of distractions? See that like jingly noise? That is entirely just this terrible leash contraption, which I would love to redesign. Do we have cat? I don't see him right away. Let's point the camera somewhere he might walk. So yeah, Sar says, hello there. I've been doodling and drawing all my life, and I've been meaning for a long time to create a piece of art only with circuit board materials and manufacturing process. And it's finally done. Enclosed is a circuit board art piece that I designed. You have one of 580 from a limited edition run. It's called Dreamer, featuring many doodling elements that dominate my notebook since forever. I started it by drawing on card using fine pens, scanned it, and then traced it into vector form. Finally, I converted it to PCB form using Inkscape and PCB mode. I've added some artistic features and textures to exemplify this PCB art hybrid. My friends at Eurocircuits created prototypes and manufactured it beautifully on 2.4mm FR4 with 35 micrometer copper foil, 2-pass solder mask, and gold finish. I hope this piece of art for the discerning individual could adorn the wall of your workshop, cubicle, home, or doomsday bunker and be a conversation starter. Send me pictures, please. All the best from Sar in London, May 2018. Yeah, well, this will definitely adorn my doomsday bunker / concrete box warehouse thing. Oh gosh, James is asking if I redesign the leash, will I be releashing it? Oh, that had me worried, not because of the pun actually, but because the prospect of redesigning the leash has me... I've already redesigned the leash, what, once, twice. This is the second leash at least. And no, I think most of it's fine. I don't think the leash wiring is a problem, and I think the actual... I'll show you what's going on there later, but there's like a system of wires that kind of collapse onto themselves with a piece of nylon cord, and I think that part is working fine. I'm actually pretty happy with that part. The thing that sucks that I really want to replace is the pulley and counterweight system. That nylon line, which is great, goes up into a pulley, which sucks, and then down to a counterweight, which is not itself terrible, but there's no mechanical advantage in the pulley system, so it means the counterweight just runs out of room and smacks into stuff. So I just need some small changes. I don't need to redesign the whole thing. I just need to redesign the way the pulley is attached to the rest of the leash attachment thing. So thankfully it's a small thing. In fact, there's like one really large 3D print up there that barely fits on my printer bed, which is this like big radius that gently holds the leash up there. And I don't want to have to reprint that. So I think the pieces I'm going to design will just bolt onto that in some extra holes that I left. So I've got the 3D models for that in Fusion 360 for whenever we feel like it. Well, this is pretty. This looks like, I don't know if this is just one layer from the PCB art or if this is a kind of the original image that the PCB art was then made from. That's cool. And then here's the thing. Oh man, the sandbag is so good. You guys need to yell at me if my camera is shaking and tell me to get the sandbag, because it always helps. Whoops. I ripped the paper. Whoa. Oh wow, mine is personalized. Dear Micah, keep doing what you're doing. Yours, Sar Drummer. Oh, thank you so much, Sar. Well, I really like what you're doing too. Definitely keep it up. I'm sorry I'm so behind on making videos about your work, because I really enjoy it and I really find it delightful to put together and to have around me. So anyway, we're starting with the credits here, and then here's the main event. Wow. I don't know how much of this is coming through on camera. There's a lot of really interesting texture in this. I might have to break out the microscope. I mean, it's right here. It doesn't take much work to break it out, but... Oh, there you are, Tuco. Yeah, the sandbag is great. The white balance is not bad either. Can I get any closer with this camera? So yeah, the silk screen is really nice on its own. And then, oh, you can maybe just start to see it on camera, but there's this really interesting texture right below the silk screen in the copper layer. Or below the solder mask, rather. Oh, there we go. It helps if it's in focus and it perfectly just the right angle. Yeah, this is cool. A little nugget of gold in the middle. I think sometimes when I'm doing these live streams, I kind of rush through the photography because I worry about boring people. But then when I'm editing, I always wish I had more, what do people call these, hero shots or whatever, just the like really front and center shiny images of the thing that you're actually working on. I still don't even know if this is going to go into a video. I feel like it certainly could. I probably should at least put it into some compilation. I don't know if it'll get an entire thing, but I imagine the context I'd want to use it in would intersperse some of these big broad cuts with some close-ups to show the texture. And so I'd probably want a couple of broad cuts and then a bunch of separate close-ups. Oh, this 3D engine's pretty good. Really good quality textures. I'm getting kind of annoyed by this being handheld. Stack stuff to get this at just the right angle. Maybe this is a job for the other vice, but... Some of that camera sag is nice, most of it isn't. Oh yeah. Michael says, slowly getting back into the swing of designing PC boards again. It's surprisingly easy to get obsessed with it. Yeah, I agree. I really love projects that just give you this like long runway of fiddly detail-oriented work that you just know you have to do and you can just do. Like, and PCB layout like that I find really satisfying. Oh, I want this to stop wobbling, and then I'll do a focus pull. If I can, without making it wobble. You can always change the speed in post. As long as I don't make it wobble. Let's try that again. And it's easier to go faster in post than to go slower in post, right? This lens is really annoying to do focus pulls with, because there's no direct connection between the lens elements. It's just like an encoder around the lens. I'm just realizing that I hardly ever talk about photography on the stream, even though that's like a lot of what I'm doing here. Ping pong? No, I think that's just a clicky keyboard. It's probably hard to hear through this RF headset. This is kind of fun. I'm also photographing the very dark side right now. Nick says talking to most people about photography is about as fun as talking to most people about operating systems. Yeah, maybe that's fair. Maybe if I picked my group here around that instead of electronics, that would be more of a thing. I've still been figuring out what camera to get next, because I want to upgrade to 4K video at some point, and it seems likely that my next camera should actually be a video camera instead of just using a DSLR for video like I have been. But I'm still not quite sure what to get, and I haven't got anything yet. I did get a gimbal though. I've been meaning to actually get some kind of handheld gimbal, and so I got one of the larger Feiyutech gimbals. So it's the same brand on TucoFlyer, and it might be compatible in some ways. That could be something we investigate in a future stream. But yeah, it's made by the same company as the gimbal on TucoFlyer, but it's big enough for a small DSLR. So that's what I've been using for some of the close-up Tuco video in the recent edits. Got this little Samsung mirrorless camera that I bought used from a friend ages ago, and I haven't been using it as much since getting this DSLR, but recently I kind of realized it was still useful for 1080p 60, because this one does not actually shoot 60 frames per second, whereas that one will shoot really nice 1080p 60. It's missing a lot of other features that I'd love to have, like a mic input, but it will shoot 1080p 60. I'm not really sure how to pan around and get some close-ups. Maybe just like, because I think I can't really get as close as I'd like to with this camera, or with this lens. This reminds me, I've certainly done some little drawings that kind of revolve around almost like a little seed or a plant or a growth in the middle, and then like this kind of scene around it. And so it kind of reminds me of some of those. And then it almost like just thinking about that in general, I wonder if that's just like kind of a common theme because it's almost like a mandala. Let's get a little bit of microscope footage. I should turn on the microscope recorder. Can I do that from here? It's always nice when I can do things without even having to get up, right? That's home automation. I've heard about that. Yes. Which monitor is my mouse on? Hey, Took. Oh, where were we? Oh gosh. Yeah, there's a lot of choices for 4K. I mean, it seems like Canon makes some good stuff. I could just go with one of the big DSLR manufacturers and see what they offer for video. I've been looking at some of those. I'm also really excited about the new, what is it, the Pocket 4K? I forget what it's called. There's a new one that Blackmagic is coming out with soon. I think the name says something about Pocket. I think it's actually a little larger than any Pocket I've seen. It's like 8 inches long, but it's like DSLR sized. It's a video camera that takes micro four thirds lenses, films at, I think, 4K 120 FIPS, and it runs Blackmagic's recording software. Just seems like generally a pretty great camera, and just like for the features was actually pretty reasonably priced. Which is to say it was like $1,200 and not like $30,000, right? But that's still a lot of money for a camera. I mean, if I expect that whatever camera I get is probably going to end up costing around $1,000, but I'm still hopeful I can find something that isn't amazingly expensive. Oh yeah, James is wondering about home automation and energy savings, and what I'm doing with that. Yeah, there are a couple of reasons why I set that up. I haven't even really specifically started talking about that, but I guess we could start talking about that. I was gonna try to finish this thing, and then Tuco sat down. I guess just to really quickly answer the question, the thing that I wanted primarily was to just have a little bit of power monitoring plus remote power switching. So like it's not like I'm jumping on a home automation bandwagon or anything. There are just a couple of features that I needed, and I might have preferred to get just like more of a rack mount PDU style thing that had a bunch of outlets that it could measure and switch independently. But I ended up going with more of a Internet of Things-y kind of thing, because the outlets I wanted to monitor and switch were just physically all over the place, and so having them all monitored with separate devices that were all on Wi-Fi was convenient. So yeah, I'm using that to monitor the power on a bunch of the equipment here, which is useful, partly for saving energy, partly just for understanding what's going on and like detecting problems early, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'll certainly use it to optimize how much energy I'm using, and I've already been making some changes in that direction. And for the switching, Part of it was I wanted to remotely switch some stuff that I already had manual switching for. So like the Tuco Flyer stuff, I had a bunch of manual switches I had to run around the shop and flip. So now I have a single thing I can poke on my phone that turns 5 switches on and off around the shop. I also wanted to take a bunch of the equipment that's in the rack that I don't always need to use, that's hard to turn off, and then put that on some of the remote power switches. And I haven't actually done that yet, but I've got that part of the way set up, and that's where that's headed. So. Blackmagic, yeah, I've used a bunch of their stuff at this point. I've got a few Blackmagic capture cards here. I've got a 4-input decklink card in the machine that I'm streaming from right now, as well as a 1-input mini recorder. And then I've got a couple of their external mini recorders. So yeah, I'm familiar with their recorder stuff. I don't have any of their like pro video like streaming or camera gear, but they make some pretty cool stuff. They also make some good software. They make like a freely downloadable video editor that's pretty good. Or at least I think is it freely downloadable? I think they changed something recently in the license, so there might be like some kind of free tier. They make like a video editing package that is inexpensive and I think has a free tier of some sort now, but I forget exactly what the deal is with that. It's DaVinci Resolve. Oh, that's cool. Michael says that they use... Yeah, so that's the other thing I'm using these power switches for, actually, is 3D printers. Michael says that they have one on their 3D printer. Yeah, because I wanted to both monitor how much power they're using and have an easy way of shutting them off if I need to. So, yep. Yeah, I'll take a closer look at that in just a sec after I put this under the microscope. Right now, the cat is under the microscope. Where is my remote? Yeah, the TP-Link things are not amazing, but they're also not terrible, and I think they're all right for the price. Yeah, it'll be nice to have a 4K camera at some point, because I think for a while I wasn't, like, 4K would have required both a new camera and a new editing setup, and now my editing setup is certainly capable of editing all the video I want to throw at it, so. And so I think what I'll probably end up with for a while, like, once I upgrade to some kind of 4K capable camera, I'll have like a 4K A cam and then a lot of 1080p footage still for like B cams and flashback footage and stuff and computers. It would be great to have higher resolution computer capture. I'm not really sure how to do that. A lot of my pipeline really relies on HDMI at 1080p right now. So I have a feeling it would be kind of expensive and difficult to capture the computer output at 4K, but I'll probably look into that and just see how bad it would be, but I don't know if I'll do it for a while. Could do software capture for that, see how bad the lag is if I have to stream it to a different machine. This would be easier if I had this monitor on. Oh, Tuco is purring now. It's actually really hard to tell what the texture is doing under the black solder masked areas. So I was kind of trying to get a sense of that with the microscope. I couldn't tell whether the pattern was extended to the solder mask. It looks like it is to some extent. It's pretty subtle though. The cat hairs add an extra layer of detail. Yeah, I don't know, maybe the texture of the copper is kind of the same under the whole piece, and the artwork is mostly on the solder mask layer. It's a little hard to tell. It's really nice. I love the details. Matrix switcher. I don't have a matrix switcher in my setup right now. Unless, I mean, if you're talking about the Tandberg C90 that we got like donated for teardowns and stuff, that is something we could certainly use for switching, but it's not part of my setup right now, and it would take a lot of like integration work to make that happen. I have a device that you might have seen that is called Matrix, but that's just an HDMI switcher. I don't know why they named it Matrix. Alright, I think I'm done with this recording. Alright, Took. Wow, what a good cat. Alright, well thanks so much, Sar. This is a great little piece of art that I'm definitely going to find a good spot on the wall somewhere where we can all enjoy it on a regular basis. I really like this. Cool. Alright, what's next? I had a couple of other kind of small things to maybe open a bit. I didn't really want to put anything in the topic, but the one thing I did hint at was working on the robot. Oh, let's look at that energy monitoring stuff I was just talking about. Cause like, yeah, let's quit beating around the bush here. Yeah. So yeah, so this whole system that you're looking at is a time series graphing and data storage stack comprised of Grafana, which is this front end, and InfluxDB, which is the back end, and then various data collection modules. You know, various programs that you then use to collect data and then dump the data into the database, rather. So I've got slightly different sources here for these three things I'm using it for. I've got some just like general stuff from the shop here. Why do we have no traffic here? Oh, I think Telegraph is not running on the machine that's responsible for collecting that data, so I need to fix that. No. Okay, I have to diagnose why there's no data showing up here. That's supposed to be showing bandwidth data. But yeah, this is like CPU usage on a bunch of machines, disk usage. That's supposed to be bandwidth. Got a lot of these graphs for TucoFlyer, and this data is coming straight from the TucoFlyer Rust server, going to the, it's got an internal message bus that just has a bunch of data on it, going from the sensors to the different parts of the robot, and then back out to the actuators we have control over. And all of that data goes to both this internal message bus and and it gets logged at a lower rate to this InfluxDB database, so we can watch it here. Anyway, the thing I added today was this, this energy thing. Well, today I started this yesterday, as you can see, but yeah, so this has, I don't know what that spike is from. This y-axis is in kilowatts right now. There was a single data point where Tuco Flyer was drawing 283 kilowatts. So I think this must have just been a bad packet on somebody's bus, but if you ignore that, let's just look at the data after that. Alright, so I think this state here this morning, the rack was in a fairly low power state, meaning all the computers were on, but they weren't really doing much. So you can see this is drawing 600 watts. And then this big spike was starting up Tuco Flyer and the computer vision. So a couple of little things start up down here. The winches and Tuco Flyer bot themselves are drawing a few watts. And then the GPU just like surges power here. And then a bunch of things have been changing as I've been streaming and putting the system in different states. So the devices I'm using are TP-Link HS110, which I think I was getting them for like $15 each. But yeah, they're kind of big. They're not amazing. Their LAN security is pretty much non-existent. You can access them from the internet though, and the WAN security seems alright. It comes with a mobile app, which is not terrible. But the real draw, I think, was actually just using the reverse engineered knowledge about this protocol to just like write Python or Node.js code for it. So I put this on GitHub, of course. Yeah. So I found somebody had already done a project here, this C. Garnier HS110 exporter. It looks like they were using this for Bitcoin mining, because they hard-coded a default as miners DB here. Which, yeah, I guess I understand why you'd want to do that. And this is like, alright, I mean, you can see this is like pretty straightforward. Just that there's not a lot going on here. It's got this class, which is maybe like a little bit more abstraction than I would have found necessary right away. But we're connecting to the influx database, indicating a schema. I'm not even really sure if this is necessary. This might be optional. I forget how this adapter works. And then the substance of this here, we're running, connecting to the database, making sure we have a pointer to the device, and then periodically asking the device for power data, which we then write to the influx database. Yeah, this get real time returns a promise that eventually resolves to some data, including the current and voltage and power. So yeah, I used that as a starting point, but I wanted it to support multiple devices without having to hard code the settings for each one. Excuse me. So yeah, I just modified this so that it uses the device discovery in the library. And when a device is discovered, then it starts polling it. And it uses the device's name, this sysinfo.alias. That's the name that you set up in the vendor-provided mobile app. And I just passed that on to InfluxDB so that you can graph according to that. That's what shows up down here now. So that's been useful. You can use it to try to diagnose like why all these different power spikes are happening. Ideally, I'd like finer grained monitoring so that I can actually, like if I see a load change here, I can try to break that down to, is it coming from one of the computers? Is it coming from the video encoder, or not encoder, but I've just got this like one shelf on the rack that's pretty much all just like adapters to convert from one video format to another, and it'd be nice to know how much power or how much the power usage on that changes. So like I'll actually have some data on that once I get that part of the rack rearranged, because I'll have some on-off control for that. So yeah, and then the voltage is interesting. Like the voltage data, you just see a lot of stuff changing. Like I'm sure like when my neighbors turn on and off the stove, that shows up here. So, and like a lot of this, like some of these changes are specific to individual energy monitors. You can see a lot of these just kind of track each other because they're on the same circuit, and you just see the voltage drop between different parts of the circuit. But then, like at least one of these, like I think this light green one is maybe a different circuit. But then some of these changes are just common to everything that's going on in the building as far as I can see. So yeah, that was interesting, sort of. Oh yeah, while we're on the computer, I also just wanted to mention some of the decentralized social network stuff I was talking about earlier. So, yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard of it, Mastodon is pretty cool. It is not a single network like Twitter, but it's like a collection of social networks that can all interoperate with each other. So it's not really like you would jump from like one centralized thing to a different centralized thing, but you'd kind of like have to think about the way you approach social networking in a slightly different way. So it's interesting. It's a bit disorienting if you're just like really used to how Twitter does its thing, but I think the philosophy of decentralization is, I think, a really important kind of like mental shift to go through. And so I think it's something I've been telling a lot of people about, and I've been interested in it for a while. But then the thing I was pointing out earlier today as being something I was kind of freshly excited about was PeerTube. And like Mastodon, this is something where there are many instances. There isn't a single PeerTube server. Somebody has an instance tracker, actually. Yeah. So you can see, just like here, all the servers that they know about that people are running, and how many videos are available, and whether open signups are available. So I was looking around here, and you know, a lot of these are special purpose or private, and signups aren't open. There are, you know, as you can imagine, like a wide open PeerTube server that doesn't have any limitations on it would just be a recipe for spending tons of money on bandwidth. So the open servers tend to have limits on like, well, what you can post, and like what size of videos you can post, and how much video you can post, stuff like that. And each instance kind of has different approaches to that. The one that I've been experimenting with so far is this kind of large one called PeerTube.social. Which is, I think, just like one of the big open instances. Can you sort these? Yeah, so if you sort these by open signup, let's sort by number of users, maybe? There's PeerTube.mastodon.host, PeerTube.videos. This is the third largest PeerTube right now. And I was talking a little bit about how this protocol works, but even though peer is in the name and like peer-to-peer forms part of the protocol, it also is partly based on just having one machine that everyone connects to. So that's part of why the decentralization is important. Running that central server that everyone connects to gets expensive quickly. Oh yeah, hi Concrete, nice to see you again. Oh, Funky Squid is looking forward to 4K Twitch streaming. Is that even a thing? Does Twitch do 4K? I think I could 4K stream on YouTube. Yeah, I haven't really been thinking about 4K as a streaming target so much as for edited videos, because I've just got so much hardware that's just barely fast enough to handle 1080p right now. But yeah, it'd be interesting to try 4K streaming. That's just, man, yeah, that's like a lot more CPU. So yeah, so like a lot of what you'll find when picking an instance are, you know, what is that instance's policies in terms of what do they allow you to post, what, like how much do they allow you to post, and then who do they federate with? Like if you are on this instance, what other kinds of content are you going to see? Which becomes important when you think about moderation issues like illegal content or harassing content or stuff that you just don't want to have to deal with. Oh, this is interesting. So I guess this one you can sweet talk them into bumping your quota. Baseline quota of 5 gigabytes. Yeah, so I have not actually tried this host. I don't know why I didn't try this one first, but I ended up on PeerTube.social first. And then here's PeerTube.video, which has EU laws. 1 gigabyte of space. So yeah, these are not huge, right? Like, if I wanted, like, do I have my videos mounted here? Let me just show you how much space I would actually prefer to have. Oh, do I not have that mounted? Oh gosh, a 4K upgrade on TucoFlyer. Yeah. Yeah, someday. I'm sure that'll happen at some point. Just, I prefer not to contemplate it right now. It's like, right now my mind is firmly in the 1080p is fine camp for that. But it'd be nice to have a higher quality for the edited stuff, because that's, like, I'm more into just, like, trying to go for the shininess when I'm editing video, right? Oh gosh, this gimbal keeps getting slightly unhappy. Let me lower it a little, maybe. Here's my video catalog. Oh, why did I not put these in a subdirectory too? Okay, let's assume I don't give them the full quality files. Let's assume they're only getting the transcoded files. How big is this directory? This is only 19 gigabytes so far, if they want 3 megabit 1080p. But that's still kind of a lot of content to just like foist onto a random PeerTube instance, right? And if I want to go down to 720p, that's still 7 gigs. So I don't know, like maybe I'll find a PeerTube instance that wouldn't mind having me, but this also seemed like something I would actually be really enthusiastic about trying to just see how much I can run on the internet here. So yeah, I'm gonna try that. I've got a motherboard and some RAM that I'm not using, and I ordered a case and an SSD. And I'm just going to see if I can put together a machine dedicated for this purpose and see how far the fiber internet gets me. So you might be hearing more about that soon. In the meantime, I just tried putting a few things on PeerTube.social. So if you as well are curious about this whole PeerTube thing and you just want to see what it looks like, certainly just like browse around. There's a lot of random stuff here. But if you specifically wanted to see my videos on here, let's see if you could search. Does that work? It does. So yeah, a few things. So yeah. And what is this defaulting? This is defaulting to 480p, which is not amazing, but it gets the job done. And you can select the 1080p. I think this is full res. I don't think I had to transcode this one. This is alright. It's nice to not have to worry about the rights for streaming this, because like, this is fine, this is my thing, I can stream it. If it actually has enough buffer, I can stream it, that is. So yeah, PeerTube is cool. I'm excited about it. I recommend trying it, but let me know if you've tried it and you found something cool. It's also got some compatibility with the rest of the kind of like decentralized social. So you can follow PeerTube accounts on Mastodon, for example. It doesn't really do much yet, but you can. Ah, it's getting cold. Yeah, totally. Station 240 says they can see 4K being useful for edited vids when I want to zoom in on something. Yeah, that's something, I should have mentioned that. That's a big reason for wanting a 4K or higher camera, is that, especially for edited stuff, if I'm filming stuff at a much higher resolution, then that gives me much more flexibility for framing and editing afterwards. So if I can, it would be great to get a camera that's like a little higher than 4K even, and then when I'm editing that down to 4K or even 1080, then I can get a lot more framing flexibility. Christian is asking what bitrate I'm streaming at. YT says 18 megabits, but it sounds kind of high. No, I'm probably streaming at 18 megabits. Yeah, I have like an archival quality encode that I do straight off the bat, and then I do a lower quality encode for Twitch, but YouTube just lets me send as much data as I want, so I send the large stream to YouTube, and then they do their own transcode. So I think if you have the bandwidth on your client side, YouTube will let you have that whole stream, but otherwise YouTube will give you a lower quality or lower bitrate transcoded stream. Yeah, PeerTube is great. Lars says they hope it stays. Yeah, I think one of the questions for me is, like, it seems like as an open source project, PeerTube seems pretty vibrant right now. It's hard to tell how much of that is like really like kind of durable grassrootsy effort, and how much of it is really just Framasoft, which is the main like nonprofit that's behind PeerTube. It's unclear how much of it's like whether just like Framasoft being really awesome, and we're all just like really dependent on Framasoft continuing to be awesome in the future. So it could be that, but like the software is good as far as I can tell. Like, I mean, it certainly could use improvement in some areas, but it's like much more mature than it needs to be for me to be excited about it. So like, yeah, I'm excited about the software, and it seems like it just keeps getting better. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest question that I have about PeerTube though is just like how do we find, as a like global community of creators / people who want to look at content, how do we actually find a way to keep these services like economically viable? And it's like part of this like bigger problem of just like, how do you fund the work you care about, whether it's open source or art or sysadmin work or community management or documentation. There's a lot of work people do that you know, that I think like in the past we've relied on the generosity of volunteers, and then they burn out, and then the communities implode, and then you have to find more volunteers, and then they burn out. And so like I'm interested in how we can come up with a viable decentralized web that doesn't just also rely on burning out volunteers repetitively. So that's like the long-term thing I've got my eye on, and I'm hoping that I can contribute to that being positive. So yeah. Oh gosh, where were we? I think I had some notes about what we could do that are under Tuco here. Let's see, talking about... Oh, you know, did I ever actually check to see if my bots were working? I think I got so like completely ADD sidetracked on this stream that I didn't even actually do the check I was trying to do. I guess I can just do that on the computer. So the bots. So we've got Twitter, Scanlime Live, which is the usual bot. Oh, are all the bots broken? Yeah, okay, maybe we need to debug the bots then. I think I can do that without exposing any credentials on stream. So, and then there's the Mastodon bot. Social.cop, yeah. And this posts to my main Mastodon account, which is that just slash or? This is me forgetting how Mastodon formats the URLs. It wasn't that. I linked to it from my Twitter though. Oh, the @ is important. Cool. This isn't working either. Yeah, let's try to debug this. Because I try to debug it as much as possible beforehand, but I was using like testing accounts and I must have messed something up. Let's just do this carefully. Is it just not running? Yeah. Okay, so I will not be catting any of those account files, but the rest of this is in GitHub. And I think if I run... I should run this inside screen or something, but let's just see how badly this breaks. Is this a permissions thing? Because I think it might have been running as nobody before. Maybe it runs fine as myself, but not as nobody. Let's see if that actually posted then. A lot of people will be finding out about the stream completely late. Oh yeah, here we go. So on Mastodon, there's kind of a culture of making it easy for people to like opt out of content that they don't want to have to deal with. And so these content warnings are really useful for that. So I was asking about etiquette, and some people suggested that I use content warnings for all the bot posts, and that seemed like a pretty good idea. So that's what we've got here. So you open that up, and then it has the same text that the tweet has, with a link to YouTube and Twitch. So this is also something that we're gonna have to wait around for if we want to just like test this organically, but after we've been streaming for, I think the way it's set up right now, every 90 minutes it posts a screenshot saying we're still streaming and with a screenshot of what we're doing. So if the stream goes on a while longer, we might get to test that, but I might just have to like fix the permissions and save that for the next stream. At least that posted. And here. And yeah, and now it posted. Probably a permissions problem. I'll just have to test that later. Sorry about that. Alright, well, I think it's definitely too late to get into a new CAD project, so I'll have to save that for a different stream. Yeah, we could just wrap this up. It's like almost 10 o'clock here. I ended up starting this a little later than I really intended because of all the just like internal IT stuff, but well, at least it posts on Mastodon when I run it from the command line. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I've rambled about this enough. Could do something less rambly. I have, see, part of why I thought it would be interesting to work on the CAD is that that's a nice self-contained job. Some of the other stuff I have to do, like figuring out the height sensing algorithm, like that's still in kind of a research phase at this point. Like I'm still trying to figure out like how to even implement that. And it's kind of annoying to do that kind of work on stream because it just turns into bike shedding. Or just like rambling into nothing, I guess. I still have that firmware hysteresis problem to work on, which was also kind of annoying to do on stream, but maybe less annoying than some of the other stuff we could do. Yeah, I don't have that stuff extremely set up right now, and it's pretty late, so maybe I will just consider this mostly a rambling/test stream and wrap this up, and just try to be doing this less infrequently in the future then. Now I feel bad about fixing the notification script and then like wrapping up the stream. Okay, well, I need to not worry too much about making every stream be everything for everybody and just like do this less infrequently. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but try to be less of a stranger. So I will see you folks next time. And yeah, maybe I will try to do the Tuesday, Thursday thing again. I don't think there's anything extremely magical about that schedule, but it was kind of working. We could try to do it again. Oh, cool. I'm glad a couple of you enjoyed the stream, even though it was very undirected as compared to what I usually try to plan. But cool. Give you a little more full screen Tuco pets here. I was also gonna maybe open one of these, but we could save this for a different stream. I got a couple of these little, oh look, I'm already opening it. What am I doing? Got a couple of these little pocket-sized plasma lights on somebody's recommendation from Twitter, I think. Because they were cheap, and I wanted some of these, I think these tubes are called crackle tubes. Oh no, Tuco's gonna be really into the, oh, this is actually great. Yeah, we're gonna have to go into this a bit. So it's got like phosphor-coated glass with a kind of bumpy pattern, and then some styrofoam that Tuco will just chew the crap out of. So, yeah. I think I'm gonna save this for a different stream when it isn't 10 p.m., but that's something else we can maybe look at. I had a reason for this that was not related to just like wearing them on my belt and going to a disco. Maybe more like high voltage art related, but we'll see. There's also an art thing set up on the table behind me, which I'm kind of surprised we didn't get around to interacting with, but such as things. Can I get a really quick view with the camera here? Here's the dark part of the room. Man, that computer monitor looks like the surface of the sun. I know this is really grainy right now, and the compression might be doing terrible things to it, so I'm gonna try to get a little closer. Okay, well, just consider this a teaser for a future stream, which I should do really soon. Maybe even tomorrow morning, because I wanted to do some, like, I have some friends coming over this weekend and we might end up like making a bigger mess of this than it already is. So, yeah, Yeah, I don't know how well that's coming over on the super grainy cam, but there is a slinky and a piece of 10mm spring steel stretched between two hard disk voice coil motors. And all of that is connected to an amplifier whose input is connected to that bold port light to sound doodad. So it's an interesting kind of feedback loop situation, and we'll go into some more detail on that later. But I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll see you folks later.